Councillor Kelly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the chair, the chief, and the deputy chief for being here today, and for the work that you do on a daily basis for our city. Chief, you've been out to my ward a few times. You know that policing and response times and having a presence in rural communities is important to all residents of rural Ottawa. The first question I want to ask is a follow-up to a question that my colleague asked, but she asked it in French. So I want to make sure that the answers are clear for everybody. So I am, based on what I've said, I'm obviously happy to see the biggest increase in the police budget that we've seen in some time. My only concern is that it's not high enough. So can you clarify that a good chunk of this money, or some of the increase, is going to cover obligations under collective agreements like salaries, maternity leave, paternity leave, sick leave, etc.?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question. So yes, I can tell you the large majority of this funding increase goes towards collective bargaining agreements and year 3 of our staff stabilization plan.
And when you say a large majority, can you give us a percentage of what this increase is covering in terms of the obligations under collective agreements versus new initiatives?
Yes, I actually can. So I can tell you our maintaining services category, as it's categorized within the budget book, identifies that $30.5 million goes towards both collective bargaining and staff stabilization. So large majority, that is actually more than what our overall net increase is. There's some offsets within it, but yes, it is taking up the largest majority of our new money.
Okay, good to know. Obviously, we've heard a lot about speeding and road safety, and that's just as big a concern in rural Ottawa as it is in any other part of the city. In fact, the likelihood that you will die in an automobile accident is 80% higher in rural Ottawa than it is in other areas of the city. So speeding enforcement is incredibly important. We've lost a tool recently in terms of being able to enforce speeding limits on rural roads and of course citywide. Are there any rural specific initiatives in terms of enforcement for speeding that you're looking at currently?
Thank you, Councillor, for your comments. In regards to rural, that rural enforcement, this is an area where our district inspectors, and of course for you, Inspector Ian Hayes, where that communication is key, understanding those areas. And I know, the Constance Bay area for you and the offshoots there and the height of summer and some of the drinking and driving and the speeding that goes on there. Again, we have our data, and the West District traffic team needs to be up in your ward, as in every ward, and be directed specifically where they need to go. And we want to get there with our data and with your input and your community's input.
Thank you for mentioning Inspector Hayes. I'll take a moment to thank him for his amazing work. He's been fantastic since he came. I don't know when he came out to the West or when exactly I got introduced to him, but he's been fantastic. And I will say, there are concerns about response times and presence, but each and every time I've reached out to you or Inspector Hayes and had that, or Deputy Chief, action has been taken and resolutions have been found. So I certainly appreciate that. And I was very excited when you began talking about a shift back to the district model and the positive impact that could potentially have in rural Ottawa in terms of enforcement. You mentioned the district teams for speeding enforcement. I think there was a sergeant and 7 officers per team. Is there a net increase in deployable resources for speeding enforcement, or is this a result of organizing differently or deploying in a different way? I guess the key there is there a net increase in deployable resources?
Right. Thank you, Councillor. It's a bit of both. We are redeploying certain positions into traffic, but we are growing as well too. Well, when I say growing, we have 34 positions in our traffic unit, and we're nowhere near that. So we're actually not growing the boxes right now, but eventually we will. Our district teams, again, it's a sergeant and 7 constables that each team will have. We also have another team of traffic specialists that have other roles that are included. So we're dividing those two and layering some new positions on as well too. So there will be a net increase.
And my last question is sticking with the implementation of the district model. I know I think you announced that you were going to head in that direction about a year after you came, or not long after you took the position, which I was excited about. Have your plans on implementing a district model had to change because of budget constraints, or are you where you wanted to be at this point when you decided you wanted to shift to a district model, whenever that was?
Right. A very good question, Councillor. Yeah, when we first went in the direction of the district model, you mentioned about a year after I got here. I would say it would be about that time. And I've been here 3 years now, over 3 years. So, you know, in the 2 years since, what we all have learned, as well as me, is this district project that we have is a beast. And it's not simply creating a South District and putting people in those boxes. It is there's a lot of work that is getting done behind the scenes to do this right. And not only structurally within the organization, but on the data technology front as well too. We have a process that we've just started that will be done in May that will determine, not just in zones, but in neighborhoods, what do we need to properly respond to calls in a particular area? And we're going to have that number later in 2026. This takes time, it takes money, and it's not quite, it's a lot more than I thought. I thought we could turn this around in about 18 months of work. It's going to be about 2.5 years before, 2.5 to 3 years before we can fully implement it. Implementing the process is one thing, and then filling all the boxes with the growth that we need is another, and that will take some time. And it'll take a number of years to actually get us to that point where, yes, now we're where we need to be.
Well, Chief, I would say that I don't think you're the only one sitting around this table right now who's finding it taking longer than they thought to get things done. So thank you very much for what you do, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor.